Hello, Art One. So now, as you can see, I have finished with my stepped value scale. There is not a white section. This one is actually just a very, very light gray. I have gone through with my pencil only one direction, very close together and softly. But what I want to show you now is how this pencil, which is a 9B, will make my darker values even darker and really increase the depth of that value scale, because this is the exact same thing that you all will be doing when you are shading. So I'm just going to hold my pencil pretty far back again, same as I have been. And right now I'm not actually pressing into the paper that hard. The extra value that you see there is simply because it's a 9B pencil. So it will inherently be much darker without much effort. So now you see the difference between those two values. So now I have to make this one a little bit darker as well, because I don't want my steps to be too far apart. Just like if you're on actual steps, you don't want them to be so far apart that you fall down. So you want to make sure that your steps are distinct on these value scales, but not so far apart that they don't look like they go directly from one to the next. So then I'm just going to darken this one a smidge as well. So as you can see, as I continue to rotate my paper, rotate my pencil, hold my pencil far back, I'm making sure that I get an equal amount of graphite on that whole section so that my shading can stay as smooth as possible. So right now I am barely pressing down at all because I do not want to make this section too dark. So now you can see the separate values all a little bit better because I have gone back and just added another layer with my 9B pencil. So that's just a very quick example of how you would shade in layers, because obviously you do not want to get too dark too fast. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is just a little bit on the graduated value scale, because being able to do this will help you figure out these. I'm not actually right now going to show you how to shade these forms, because I want you to give it a go with what you learned from creating the value scale. Because essentially, you're going to be recreating these. Paying attention to the light source, midtones, core shadow, reflected light, and cast shadow. Just like we talked about the other day in class. And essentially it's a bunch of small value scales all getting lightest right at that highlight area. So that's why we're going to focus on the graduated value scale next. So I'm going to start with my regular HB pencil. I'm going to start in my darker area again. Still not starting out with my darkest value, still moving up and down quickly and rather slowly going across. Still keeping that value as smooth and consistent as possible. Pressing down less and less as I go across. Eventually, I'm going to be pressing down barely at all and then lifting up. So that might be my first sort of run through. Each run through that I do with a graduated value scale is going to start darker, and that darker value is going to extend further. Don't worry too much about your edges yet at this point. I'm more concerned about you getting a smooth transition, and then you can go back and kind of clean up your edges after you focus on that smooth transition, because it'll be much easier that way. So again, I'm just going to keep building it up in layers, keep building it up in layers. Notice that the darker part gets longer. There becomes more of those mid-tones, more different shades of gray. And my light area gets shorter each time. So now I'm just going to jump up to the 9B, even though I'm not quite ready to, just so that you guys can see in a quick video what that might look like. So as you can see, I find it much easier to create a full range of values with the softer B pencils, simply because you don't have to press down as hard in order to get a pretty dark value. The tricky thing becomes figuring out how much less to press down as you get to the lighter values. So that might be a graduated value scale at this point. So the next thing I'm going to do is just sort of clean up my edges by going the other direction a little bit. I'm not pressing down hard enough to actually change the value at all. Just pressing down hard enough to kind of fill in those gaps on the edges and smooth things out. Notice that I am not using my finger at all. I am creating all of these value transitions, all these different shades of gray and tints of gray just with my pencil. I do not want to see any finger smudging on these. Right now, we are not even using the tortillon, which we will eventually. Right now, I want you all to focus solely on creating all the different value transitions with your pencil. So I'm going to go back over my value scale one last time with my HB, mostly because I want to even out some of my lighter values. It does take some patience, it does take some time, especially to get your value transitions nice and smooth. Because these mid-tones, these really light grays, before you get to the highlight value, are going to be very important for creating the depth that you see there. Again, just kind of cleaning up my edges, filling in some of those gaps, not making anything any darker, just making it a little neater. So there you have stepped value scales and a graduated value scale. So what you guys are going to be doing after you finish with both of those components is focusing on your cone, your sphere, and your cube. And they will be graduated value scales in a specific direction like you see on the examples. So those of you who are working from home, that is Monday's main assignment, is to work on both of these value scales and start working on the forms. Because then on Tuesday during our live stream, we will begin talking about the color wheel and how to mix your colors and how to place them and arrange them on that color wheel.